Okay, we are live. So welcome, Brandi, Myrtle Beach, love you, and Maria from
Hi.
Beaufort, and Jorge, the South Florida connection. Just teasing. That was a little
Hey.
joke, just being funny. I'm so glad that you guys are here to talk about. I'm so here to talk to you guys about the real estate market and how it's going in your areas. Do
Awesome.
you want to start, Brandi? You just want to give us like an overview of what you're seeing in Myrtle Beach?
Yeah, so we have a lot of great things still continuing to happen in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. If you are a buyer, I think one of the greatest statistics for you to hear is that from September of 2021 to September of 2022, we have 44.9% more inventory year over year, which means that now there are actually properties for you to buy if you're a buyer and you no longer have to meet with your buyer specialist, go out, see properties, write offers, have your heart broken. So it's a great market to be in as a buyer. But it's also a great market to be in as a seller, because I think another really great statistic overall is that our average sales price is up 22% over September of 2021. So we're still in an inclining market, which means it's a great market to sell your property in. But there is more inventory for those buyers out there. So there's also that option and possibility for you to be able to negotiate a good deal for your buyer. So I think we're in a more normalized market, and I don't know about you all, but I'm super here for it.
I think our market is agreed. Agreed. Our market is more normalized too, which I like a lot better. So, what are you seeing, Maria?
It's about the same thing that Brandy's saying. We're seeing very similar down here in Beaufort, South Carolina. What I think has happened is it went up, 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 and then we reached the plateau around, I would say, around April, May timeframe, and then it kind of just plateaued and it leveled out. So I think we are in kind of a stabilization point right now, and that's a good thing. And we do have more inventory.
You went out your last little sentence.
Oh, I said, and we do have more inventory than we did last year. So I have houses that I can sell.
That's fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. What about with you, Jorge? What are you seeing in Florida?
Yeah, so down here in South Florida, specifically in Broward County, which is where Fort Lauderdale is located, we are definitely seeing more inventory from last year and even from earlier this year. Our inventory is up around 80%. So whereas last year or earlier this year was about a month and a half worth of inventory on the market, right now we're close to 3 months, right around like 2.7. So there's definitely a lot more options, like Brandi was saying. But prices are still up. I mean, even though the homes are taking a little bit longer to sell, our average days on the market has increased. Prices year over year are up right now about 13% for single family homes from a year ago today. So that's still a great time to be able to cash out on an investment if you're looking to make a move. And for a buyer, it's really refreshing because you don't have to show a buyer a home and be like, okay, are we going to write on it? Or think about it on the car ride home to dinner and talk about it, and then let me know, and I'll write it up.
And 6 months ago they would have missed it.
Yeah, and then how much over asking and which one of your children are we sacrificing in order for you to win?
Yeah,
that's right. So
I only got 2.2. I only have 2.2 right now. But that's pretty close, Jorge. That's pretty close.
You're talking about like as far as your inventory?
Mm-hmm. We're at 2.2 months.
Yeah, we're at 1.9.
What did you say?
We're at 1.9, about the same.
So in Myrtle Beach, we're at 2.6. But that's all properties across our MLS. And one of the things I think that's probably important to remember, and I guess it's probably the same for all of your markets, is that as a beach town, half of our inventory is in investment properties. They're not necessarily, I mean, you could live in them, I guess, but they're typically like investment condos that people purchase for income generation. So when we're looking at the entire market, we have to take that into consideration as well. And given that it's a slower time of the year, moving into the winter, you will see more of those condominiums come onto the market because they're not generating any rental income right now.
Yeah.
That's interesting because down here, I mean, it gets busy right now in the beach market because everybody's escaping the cold, leaving the snow, and coming down to Florida for the winter to have the beach. So it gets busier out on the beach. However, out in the suburbs, it's opposite. Out in the suburbs, everybody wants to move in the summer, once kids are out of school. So it's funny how our market, while it's the same county, changes how fast it moves typically.
Yeah. So
We're
contrary
usually slow down November, December. What is that? What you say? Yeah.
So similar
I
to
have always
Jennifer,
heard that about Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's when I like to go to Florida, December, January, right?
Yeah.
I don't think many people like to come down to Florida when it's 90 degrees. I mean, I'm fine with it at the beach, but
So
most
I would be
people like
remiss if I didn't give a shout out. I am at Remax of Orange Beach right now. Renee Stringer is a good friend of mine. I'm visiting Orange Beach, Alabama right now, which is on the Floribama line, right? So I agree with you that it's a wonderful time to visit Florida right now because it's beautiful. I spent my whole day out on the beach, but Myrtle Beach is not that warm, and it's going to get just progressively cooler as in the coming months.
It is. It's 81 degrees here right now, but typically it's not. Brandi and I are just an hour from each other, so I think we have very similar weather.
Yes.
Except for right this second, because you would be in Alabama.
She's got warmer.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So what are you seeing any other trends, or what about like seller concessions? Have you guys started seeing seller concessions now?
Yes.
I have
And
a
what type
buyer
of concession?
Well, I have a buyer that we basically asked for a lot of repairs that, if you asked for it 5 months ago, they'd say, go take a hike. And they agreed to all of the repairs and a credit on top of it.
Wow.
The house had been sitting on the market now for 2 months. It was not overpriced. It was just, how things are moving. So definitely some room for seller concessions down here, and much more than at the beginning of the first half of the year. That was not even a question, really.
Yeah. I haven't seen many seller concessions. However, I am seeing we are able to negotiate the price and seeing sellers doing the work that we ask from the repairs. I haven't seen any yet actually give money towards closing costs or anything like that, but they are more open to doing the things that need to be done.
So I've seen it in that you may still be paying the asking price or slightly over the asking price, but the sellers are now open to that kind of offer with a concession, where I felt like maybe just 3 months ago that they were not open to that kind of concession at all. They just wanted the highest and best possible offer at the moment. And oftentimes that would be a cash buyer or somebody that could put a significantly large down payment. So people who were coming in with FHA financing or VA financing were really struggling because they had limited resources in terms of down payments, and the seller was not, willing to concede. But I will tell you that I have some new construction homes that are closing next week, and my seller increased the price to give the buyers their seller concession. And because we have been in an inclining market for so long, we were able to do that and still get the property to appraise and make it possible for a VA buyer and an FHA buyer to get into a home. So I definitely am seeing that turn for the better for your buyers that have that financing need.
No, I agree with you. 6 months ago,
That's
nobody would have
fantastic.
looked at an FHA or VA. What were you saying, Maria?
I said, that's fantastic, though, that you were able to work. So that would have been a builder doing that, right,
Yeah.
Brandi?
Mm-hmm.
That's really great. That's really great that the builders are jumping in and doing that. I've got 3 closing before the end of the year, and I was a little nervous about how that process was going to go. So that's great to hear.
Yeah.
So I think one of the other things, and I know that this isn't a question, Jennifer, that, we're talking about changing markets. And I think definitely we need to address the elephant in the room and the fact that interest rates are rising.
Absolutely.
And I love the whole concept of date the rate, marry the home. And I follow Dave Ramsey a lot. He's a financial guru. He said housing market is going to continue to rise in price. Maybe not as quickly as it's been rising, but if you wait 5 years to buy a house, you're still going to pay more for it than you paid today. And so I'm still trying to work with buyers to get them to take that leap and make that decision. But one of the things that concerns me as an agent sometimes throughout the transaction is because we've seen such significant rise in interest rates, and because I sell a lot of new construction properties, we went to contract 6 months ago when the interest rate was 3%. And now here we are going into November, December, fourth quarter, and interest rates are hovering around 6%. And so when someone qualified at 3%, do they still qualify now at 6%? So that's been one of the monkeys that we've been dealing with in our market because we do sell a lot of new construction homes in Myrtle Beach.
Well, I agree. And I had one that because interest rates went up and it was a higher price point house, but his monthly payments went up $1,600 a month extra.
Yeah.
Just because of the interest rates. So in that situation, he backed out of it and we found him a home that was already built.
Mm-hmm.
But he's super, super happy. But I do think when you have new construction, I think that is a concern because lenders could only lock in for a year now. Yeah, right. And then if it takes longer than that, then that is a concern. I think lenders are getting more. We're going back to the 5-year ARMs, the 7-year ARMs. We're starting to see some seller buy downs on those interest rates. So I think they're going back and going back to the way it was.
I've seen some buy downs so far, which is we hadn't seen that in a long time.
That is exactly. I'm trying to read what she said. Hold on. 30 less. That's good. Well,
interesting.
Yeah, right. And thanks for everybody. Hi, everybody.
Yeah, hi to all the people. I don't know how to respond to y'all in the chat, but I'm here saying hi and thanks for all those awesome comments.
Yes, absolutely.
Love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Y'all, what are you hearing? I'm not hearing a lot from my buyers that they're really so nervous about the interest rates. And when I do, I'm trying to calm them down and remind them that 3% was not normal.
That's exactly
my first house, 6.75, and I worked really hard to get that interest rate. So nothing could stay at 2 at the high 2s and the 3s. It couldn't stay that way. That wasn't normal. The 6, the 7 is probably the normal. And I've been trying to talk to them about that. Are y'all hearing anything?
So I think it's interesting. I think my older clients that have bought and sold homes over the past 20 years are not batting an eye at it. They're like, you know what, we'll go ahead, we'll get this, we'll refinance. If it goes down at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal. It is the newer home buyers that it has really hurt them, and they're scared of the ARM. My first house was 6% with a 5-year ARM. I think back in the early 90s. So I think just educating the public on the different things that are out there now, because the interest rate is supposed to go back up 2 more times.
Before the end of the year.
Yeah,
and I think that all of you on this call are super professional. And I think the message really to all the agents out there is that you set the tone when you're working with your buyers, so you have to provide them with the education. What does this really mean? Unfortunately, we live in like a scare tactic society where all you see on the news is all of the bad things like interest rates rising and graphs with things like going way up and scaring people, when in reality, there are, like Jennifer mentioned, lots of different programs out there available for buyers. And also, it's an investment, and every investment has risk. And we need to talk about risk versus reward. I can tell you firsthand that now in Myrtle Beach is not the time to be a tenant, to be a renter. Our rental price and our rental market is more expensive than it's been in the 12 years that I've lived in Myrtle Beach.
I'm just 33% here.
It's insanely expensive. It is still cheaper to buy than it is to rent, even given the increase in the mortgage rate. So I think that just really providing quality education and setting expectations appropriately for the buyer will help them to overcome some of those objectives.
I think you're 100%.
And setting expectations with your sellers too, because while people have gotten accustomed to houses selling in 3 or 4 days, and for getting so much over list price, you have to really set that expectation. That's to say, look, the last 2 years, ever since the pandemic, this was not a normal market. People felt like it was the norm because it was quote unquote the new norm. That's what kept happening, but it's not healthy. It was not the norm. And, I remember at the time when I first started that we would be thrilled to say that we sold a home in 30 days, in 27 days. because that's how long they would take, 30 to 60 days to sell. So I think it's really about being able to set the expectations up front with the sellers too, to know that you can't price it for $40,000 over what your neighbor got, even if it was this summer, because the prices have decreased slightly since the summer. And you can't, if you're trying to chase the market, you kind of lost it as far as the peak of the market with the height and the pricing, at least down here. And I think that you guys were saying that about the same as far as your pricing, not year to year, but from this year alone, from the summer to now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree. Ours has gone up 12%. And somebody just asked the average rent. And my question for that, my statement would be, it really depends with me where that rental house is, because we do have 4 beaches all within 10 minutes of Wilmington. Anything on the beaches is super expensive, but our average rent for, they were asking 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment is about $2,200 a month. I don't know if y'all even know what your average rent is.
Ours is about $1,500 to $1,600 off the beach. But of course, the minute that you step onto that beach, that price increases significantly. And the thing is it's not even the cost, it's the availability. There's no inventory for rentals. So the company that I work for has a separate property management company, and the available inventory is far below what it's been in the past. And it's very hard to even find a unit.
Yeah, that's what
we're down in South Florida, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm. It's now the most expensive place to rent in the country, past LA, past New York. So I know people that are paying close to right around $3,000 for a 1-bedroom apartment in downtown Fort Lauderdale. Now, granted, that's a building with amenities and elevator, all that stuff. But if that's what you're wanting to live, that's most likely what you're going to be paying. And it's just outrageous, the rents down here for sure.
What's your average sales price? Just real quickly, what is yours? Do you know yours? Mine's $425 in our area, just the median.
Ours is right around like $565.
In Myrtle Beach, it's $325 right now, $324,950 to be exact.
And some change.
Change, yeah.
We would be right around that 4 mark.
Yeah, 4 months. Interesting.
But last year it was right around 500.
Yeah.
Like a year ago today.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Ours was $325 a year ago today.
When you look at the numbers, it's crazy. It's just like, okay, what used to be a 300 is now a 400 or 500. So, your numbers look completely different.
Yeah, it's crazy. And talk about investments. I bought a house 7 years ago and I paid $210,000 for it. And there is nothing anywhere in our area below 300. And that, you're talking about investments and your, for the longevity of it, it's always a good investment.
Right. If we had crystal balls, we would have all bought a lot of property 2 years ago.
Right. That's exactly right. Well,
I was looking at our numbers and it looks like down here, and I don't know if y'all have seen it, we have like a little sweet spot, and it becomes really clear when you start looking and start analyzing the reports. And it's completely shifted. It is now that 4 to the 500 plus that is kind of the sweet spot that is selling. And it used to not be. It used to be lower, like a lot lower than that. Yeah. So, but we're like you guys. We don't have hardly anything at all in the 200s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and 150.
And we're seeing that in Myrtle Beach as well. So I actually did pull those stats because I thought that those were important to say. We're 44.9% up in terms of inventory over 2021, but on listings that are under 150,000, because we do have condos, we have like a lot of efficiency units, things like that would be under that price point. We're down 36.1% in anything in our market under $150,000, which is, I think, a tremendous statistic. It just like our pricing has gone up substantially. And so a year ago, you could get into our market if you had $150,000 budget, and we're seeing that become harder and harder. And that's a difficult conversation to have with clients who have kind of been hanging on and riding out the market and, prices are going to come down. We've not seen that. We've actually only seen them continue to rise, and seeing less and less inventory in that budget that you're looking to stay within.
That's the hardest conversation right now, because they're not going back down. They're staying.
Right.
That's exactly
People, they've decreased slightly since May, June, at least for here. Back then, average or median price was right around 580 to 600, depending on the month, but now they're at 565. So, people think, oh, prices are going to come down. They think that they're going to come down back to what they were in 2020 or even 2021, and it's not. I mean, it's just correcting itself right now. But they will steadily they will appreciate more healthier, I should say, over the next coming years. Just like Brandi had said earlier, people that are waiting 2, 3, 4, 5 years to be able to buy something, that the prices are going to go down, it's going to cost you way more to be able to afford a home then than it will now.
Yeah. I think that's an excellent point. And I've been, calling everybody in my database saying, if you're thinking of buying or selling in the next 12 months, you need to go ahead. Let's schedule an appointment to sit down and talk so that we can position you so that when you're ready to buy, you can pull the trigger. You can watch those interest rates. We could negotiate deals for you. You could figure out what plan best fits your needs. Or if you're ready to sell, same thing. We can come in there and figure out what we need to do to get your house sold quickly for as much money as possible, and just strategically set them up so that they can win in this market, because it is a good market to win in.
Right. And also to kind of, piggyback on what you're saying, we also have to educate the consumer and say, okay, so interest rates have gone up now, right? So our interest rates are more expensive than they were 3-4 months ago, but now we're in a market where there is more inventory. So there is an opportunity to be able to negotiate a deal that better suits you. Properties are not going into multiple offer situations in 24 hours. So they're on the market, and I think our average days on market is like 73 days right now in Myrtle Beach. So they're sitting on the market. So somebody who's been on the market 60 days is going to be a lot more negotiable than somebody who was going to contract previously in 48 hours.
Right.
So we're going to pay a little bit more on the rate, but let's use some negotiation power to buy down the rate, or let's use some negotiation power to try and get a seller concession and try to make the pain a little less painful for the buyer.
That's exactly right. And then the seller's still getting a great deal too. Yeah. I mean, it's still, with inventory below 4 months, we're still in a seller's market.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Brandi,
everywhere. Every one of our markets is still a seller's market.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's that was your average days on market or your median?
Median, 73.
Wow, that's a lot.
Ours is close to 70 something right now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
ours is 25. Let's see, our Beaufort.
Ours is 22.
Okay, now I better make sure I looked at that right then. Ooh.
I know, I'm looking at it too. Yep. Our median days on market is 73. Our average is 96.
Yeah. Wow.
Ours is 22, but last year it was around half of that.
Yeah.
But I personally, what I'm seeing in day to day, at least on my listings, is within 7 to 10 days.
Yeah.
No.
Our average is 73 and our median is 57.
Yeah. Wow.
So, and I will say, as an agent that works in the market and sells quite a bit of real estate here in Myrtle Beach, that I think what we are still seeing in our market overall is we're still seeing a lot of sellers that haven't come down off of that pie in the sky, I can get whatever I want from my house kind of pricing. And there are a lot of agents that will take the listing just for the sake of taking the listing and are pricing the property way above its value. And that's what's increasing our average days on market, because obviously if something is overpriced, we all know that it's not going to sell.
Can I tell y'all, looking at the numbers, it clearly shows in the trends that is exactly what's happening, because you look at the charts and it shows that the listing prices are still kind of teetering, up and down, stabilized, but still up there. And then your sold to list ratio went from a high of 101 down to 96. That's the list of sold. So that's comparing to today. So, we are in a different market. So let's go negotiate. We can negotiate again. It's my favorite part. I was like, bring me back in. I can negotiate now.
Yeah. Yes, right.
For a while, we couldn't do that. For a while, it was like, what are we going to sacrifice? Tacos for a year? Like, how are we I'll donate 4 pints of blood if you take my buyer's offer, please.
Yeah. That's right. Well, I think all is good. And thank y'all for coming on this week. I really, really appreciate it.
This is excellent. I love that you're doing this, Jennifer, because it does give us just a great perspective of what's going on in our area, in our different areas. So this has really been great.
I think it's been great. And I'm trying to talk now and read these comments, and we're seeing buyers
You've been
fizzle
getting a
out.
lot of questions.
I'm not seeing buyers fizzle out. Are you guys?
Me neither. There is a question on there about FEMA risk rating.
Yeah, I saw that
I'm
too.
wondering
We'll
if
come back
that's
up to that one.
impacting y'all. Angela asked that question. I will say that I have noted that with the change in our market, so an X elevation is a property that's unlikely to flood in a 100-year period of time. And it used to be that type of property, it doesn't require, if you're getting a loan, for you to carry flood insurance. Now, I will say publicly here live that I recommend that every single buyer in the Myrtle Beach market gets flood insurance, because it's a coastal market. And so even if it's in a higher elevation, you're still near the ocean, which is a very large body of water. So there's a high likelihood that you could potentially flood in the future. But that being said, a lot of those properties that were previously in this X elevation under the new risk rating have moved into an AE elevation. And an AE flood elevation does require flood insurance in order to finance the property. And with that happening, I have seen on personal listings higher days on market and more timid buyers, because buyers are afraid to buy in an area where they're required to carry a flood insurance policy. What I will say is that it's very important that you educate, again, the buyer on the options that they have for flood insurance, because they don't have to use the National Flood Insurance Program. There are lots of private insurance companies that will insure their properties for significantly reduced rates. So I think just being that connection and that concierge style service for your buyers is going to be increasingly important as flood elevations change in our market.
I agree. And I'm in the AE flood zone, and we're on the water, houses on stilts and all that kind of that. But literally, it truly depends on the insurance and your exact location, because my insurance is only $750 a year for flood insurance.
Yeah.
So it's.
And it also depends on the house, because I mean, down here, I had a buyer that told me I don't want to be in a flood zone. And I said, well, just because your house might be a flood zone, the house right next door to you might not reach the boundary level in that map. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're 100% in the clear if, God forbid, something was to happen.
That's exactly right.
So yeah, Brandi is exactly right. It's all about being educate them on their
It's all based on the base elevation. So yeah, you're absolutely right. You can have two houses on the same street, one in a flood zone and one not. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, technically, they're all in the flood zone, right? Because we're all, I mean, anything within 100 miles of the beach. Technically,
I say that all the time too.
You're right.
I say that all the time too. I say they're all in a floodplain. It's just whether or not you're required to have flood insurance. Everything's in a floodplain.
Right. That's exactly right.
And I think 700. I think 700 is about average of if it's not required. That's what we're hearing down here too, Jennifer. So if you're not in a required, where you're required to have flood insurance, and you want to get flood insurance, 700's a pretty decent rate for right now.
Right. That's exactly.
And I've seen that too, and I think people just don't know that. Like, I mean, when
I give them the funds, they
provide them with, I think people in their minds, they think, oh my God, flood insurance, it's going to be several $1,000s a year. And that's most of the time not the case. So I think just having that open dialogue is really important, and maybe even putting that information into the agent to agent remarks. So agents that maybe don't have a good understanding of that area would be able to share that material information with their prospective buyers.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's all been really good. This has been so insightful and helpful. And thank you guys.
You're so welcome. Thank you for inviting us. It was
Thank
so
you
great
for
to see
having
all of
us.
your beautiful faces. Hugs
Thank
to all of you in North and South Carolina, and Jorge in Florida. You're right next door to me. You should hop on over to Orange Beach and say, hey.
Right? That 9-hour drive up the coast of the state.
Oh, you want to do that?
Awesome.
Nice speaking to all of y'all today.
What did you say?
I said very nice speaking with everybody today.
Yeah, it's been fabulous.
Yes, it
I
was.
just appreciate
Great
y'all so
seeing all
much.
of your friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you to every single person who listened to us for the last 30
Yes,
minutes.
thank
We
you for all the love and
appreciate your
support.
Yeah, absolutely. And call us for any of your real estate needs.
Sounds good. Bye,
Bye,
y'all.
guys.
Guys.
Thank you.
Bye.